The Carrotpill is a meme which has swept the community over the last few weeks, and has very quickly caused a great stir. In its various iterations and mutations, it has been interpreted as a revolt against modern living, a return to the good life, and growing one's own food not only as a way of nourishment physically, but as some kind of nourishment for the soul as well. The most recent conversation has focused around the academic agent's latest video providing a manifesto for the anti-Carrotpill, in which he hilariously, if not skillfully, attempts to provide a counter to the wave of photoshopped farming images and carrot emojis in the live chat. But with all the songs and larks, there is something deeper that has been touched upon that is worth investigating further. In this video I want to talk about the hidden ideas that sit behind the Carrotpill. Rather than look at the surface level of what the Carrotpill is, I would suggest that it houses within it a series of philosophical principles that are much more interesting than the action of growing your own food alone. The principles underlying the Carrotpill are as follows. 1. The belief that beauty, truth and goodness, i.e. transcendent values, play a part in habits and purchasing decisions. Number 2. The belief that creating things is good. Number 3. The belief that technology is not an intrinsic good. Let's explore each of these principles in turn. To understand AA's position on the carrot question, we must first understand his philosophical foundations. All of this discussion ultimately revolves around human action. Why do we make certain purchases, i.e. buy a cheap carrot from a supermarket, and carry out certain actions, like growing one's own carrots? AA leans heavily on Ludwig von Mises' Treatise on Economics, Human Action, written in 1949. Mises, in his attempt to understand the dynamics of purchasing, realised that both sides in a trade must make a profit, or it would never occur. How is it possible for both sides to feel like they're gaining something? By understanding that outside the material plane, in the minds of the people trading goods, there is a feeling of gain, a psychic profit, so to speak. A man can tell a fellow man that A suits him better than B, but he cannot communicate to another man, except in vague and indistinct terms, how much the satisfaction derived from A exceeds that derived from B. His discussion of this topic is but a mere passing paragraph in a much larger book, but it is one of his only recognitions that the non-material world plays a part in what we do. A nice summary of Mises' position can be found on Mises.org as follows. Psychic profit and loss is an increase, profit, or decrease, loss, in the acting man's satisfaction or happiness. Psychic profits and losses are sensible, subjective, mental, and purely personal. They can neither be measured nor weighed. They can never be felt or sensed. The psychic profit or loss derived from any action can be compared with that of any other solely in terms of more or less. This description says a huge amount about Mises' position. Words like subjective, mental, and the emphasis on the lack of measurability all highlight a huge misunderstanding in the philosophy of aesthetic. What we can say, however, is that there has been recognition that there is a space, the understanding of value outside the mere material, even if it has been mischaracterized in a way. The next part of understanding Mises' position on buying decisions can be found in the chapter Business Propaganda, his name for what we call advertising today. Here he tries to understand the power that advertisers have over consumers. I've pulled together a few quotes which summarise his position. It is a widespread fallacy that skillful advertising can talk the consumer into buying everything that the advertiser wants them to buy. It is certainly possible for an advertiser to induce a man to try an article that he would have not bought if he had known its qualities beforehand. The quality of a commodity advertised is instrumental in bringing about the success of an advertising campaign. The effects of advertising on commodities are determined by the fact that as a rule the buyer is in a position to form a correct opinion about the usefulness of an article bought. The housewife who has tried a particular brand of soap or canned food learns from experience whether it is good for her to buy and consume that product in the future too. The idea that business propaganda can force the consumer to submit to the will of advertisers is spurious. Advertising can never succeed in supplanting better or cheaper goods by poorer goods. There's a lot of information within these quotes, but I've summarised his position as following. Number 1. Advertisers can, at best, only move people to trying a product once. 2. At the point of consumption, if the product is bad, they will not purchase again. 3. It is through experience that quality is determined. 4. the best and the cheapest will always win in the long run. Now, some of the keywords that stuck out to me immediately were quality and good. Mises must have used these words in the context of pure utility. Quote, "The buyer is in a position to form a correct opinion about the usefulness of an article bought." Usefulness is utility, that is to say, a good product is one that carries out its function in a good way. The soap cleans better, the brand of soup is more nourishing, and so on. He explores this further in the following quote. "The statements of religious, metaphysical and political propaganda can be neither verified nor falsified by experience. The metaphysical, i.e. the beautiful, good and true properties of a product, are not verified by experience." Taking Mises' points on board, we can make an axis of products that sell in a particular market. The high quality and more expensive, and the lower quality and the cheaper. Now, this axis is constantly shifting, with new market entrants and technology changing the positions. But the concept between the quality and the cheap outperforming all else stays the same. However, when we investigate how consumers purchase in the real world, we see that Mises' understanding has faults. Let's investigate the world of men's coats for a second, starting with the question, what is a quality coat? Well, from Mises' view, it's one that provides a great experience. It must keep out the rain when wet, it must keep us warm in the cold. Any thought of it being a beautiful thing must be ignored, as the wearer of the coat cannot verify its beauty via experience. Coat materials have massively changed over the last 100 years. We're living in an age of new and amazing fabrics which are better than ever at doing their job. There are hydrophobic polymer weaves, which are amazing at repelling water. There are breathable fabrics, which give you protection from the elements while keeping you cool via pores the size of a micron. We call these fabrics in the trade technical fabrics. When we look on paper, these fabrics are superior to natural fibres in almost every way. Look at wool, for instance. It's water resistant, not waterproof. It's rough to the touch. It becomes smelly when wet, and it's more expensive than many man-made fibres. Yet despite the fact that man-made fibres are higher quality and cheaper, the 2 points of Mises' axis, they do not completely dominate the market. Far from it. In the coats area, wool is still one of the most popular fabric types in the coat trade. It is clear in many areas of consumer goods that people are willing to compromise their experience for something else, for something that Mises did not account for. Mises also did not preempt the power that brand has on the psychology of the purchase. Brands, in Mises' eyes, are a way of understanding quality. For example, if a brand you like and have experienced in the past launches a product in a new category, you might try it out as you've had a previously good experience. If Bisto, the famous gravy company, released a new stock cube, it would no doubt be popular. But what if a brand launched a product in a field that was totally unrelated? What if the Blue Dragon Chinese food company launched a luxury sofa company? Would the brand trust gained from the experience still be relevant? Probably not. If anything, the fact a cooking brand was producing in products for the interior, it would likely be seen as a detriment. What if a clothing brand started producing tools? Supreme is a clothing company based in New York known for its streetwear and skate styles that have become very popular since the early 2000s. Known for its celebrity endorsement, restricted lines, and expensive collaborations, it achieved a cult following that allowed it to command a huge price for its product. Now, interestingly, much of the clothes are produced in China, and in the industry they are known for a relatively low quality of production relative to the price point. If we were to look at the Mises axis, we would see that immediately they don't fit with the paradigm. Even still, they are immensely popular and have continued to make a profit year after year, with them hitting $500 million revenue in 2020. During the 2010s, they experimented with selling a range of products that were totally outside the scope of their business: a fire extinguisher, a brick, and a crowbar. While there was nothing special about the product other than the name slapped on its side, they commanded a ridiculously high price compared to the marketplace. Interestingly, there was no marketing or advertising for these products, other than the word of mouth and the press that picked up on the products after they launched. Now, all of these lines sold out almost instantly, and so products which contained neither quality or value managed to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars. What caused this human action? Well, let's hear from the mouths of purchasers themselves, interviewed waiting in the 10-hour-long queue to buy one.
I think the brand is so fucking powerful that it's making me buy a fucking crowbar. The crowbar and the Swiss Army knife, that's all you need to trap, man.
Why does everyone want the crowbar?
Because it's a fucking crowbar. Are you fucking serious?
What are you gonna do with it?
Fucking nothing, but I'm gonna own a fucking crowbar now, so that's the fucking shit.
So you've been waiting 10 hours for a crowbar that says Supreme?
Oh, I didn't even know it said Supreme. I just want a fucking crowbar.
Most telling was when he was asked what he was going to do with it. The buyer admitted that he wasn't even going to use it. It is through the psychic power of the brand, whether that is perceived coolness, feeling of individuality, or being part of a collective, that this purchase was made. What can we conclude from these 2 points? That experience only plays a part in the reality of the purchase, and there is another element that determines purchasing decisions. Mises, while failing to understand this hidden but vital aspect of the purchase journey, simultaneously gives the answer to the problem, that there is a psychic element to the purchase. The real axis of purchase is not purely quantity and value, but also psychic properties, with these properties breaking down to a combination of brand and aesthetic. As Mises notes, this axis varies on the products and the people that were making the purchase. A starving man, no doubt, does not care how his food is produced, so long as it's cheap. A rich, well-fed man spends hundreds of pounds on what amounts to physically little at his Michelin-starred restaurant. Now let us finally start to think about the humble carrot and its utility. What is a useful carrot? Well, a useful carrot is one that's nutritious, that sustains us. But what about its taste? Does a useful carrot taste good? Taste is usually associated as an aesthetic property, and so on paper should not. But it is not quantifiable by material measurement. Putting this aside, there are clearly other aesthetic properties within inside the carrot. What are the aesthetics of carrots then? Well, they stand out from many other vegetables in their shape, which is easy to handle but not small, and their colour, which varies from a deep royal purple to a bright, luminous orange. The taste and texture is unique, crunchy with a slightly sweet note, which makes it suitable for a range of dishes as an accompaniment or a core component. And so we come to our next question. Which of the 3 axis points is the highest concern of the average carrot purchaser? Let's try and break these axes down into analysable factors as part of the purchase. Usefulness, size, freshness, nutrient value, uniformity of veg. Aesthetics, colour, shape, taste and smell, subsets of beauty. Provenance, ethics, subsets of goodness. Authenticity, adulteration, subsets of truth. Price, cheap, expensive. Let's think about usefulness factors. Firstly, I think we can all agree that people are not eating carrots out of starvation. That is, there are cheaper foods available that will sustain people more. Starvation itself has hit a global all-time low. Regarding uniformity, the rise of so-called wonky fruit and veg has also shown that size and consistency of the veg is less important than ever. Because of these 2 things, I think it's safe to say that usefulness is a low factor in purchase decisions. What about price? This table shows the prices of veg by the kilogram. We can see that carrots are pretty cheap, but interestingly not the cheapest, with the pumpkin being the cheapest veg per kilogram. If getting the cheapest veg possible is the best thing to do, freeing up our time, why does the pumpkin not have the number 1 place on people's plates? Pumpkins, in fact, are not well regarded in England, so much so that outside of Halloween it's hard to find them in many small or even medium-sized supermarkets. That being said, carrots are still relatively cheap in terms of vegetables, and so price does seem to be a significant factor for purchase. Comparing the aesthetics of carrots to other vegetables is difficult, but I've investigated public perception of vegetables, and carrots consistently appear in the top 5 fruit and veg. Certainly pumpkins were nowhere to be found. In summary, the carrot is an aesthetic purchase. When AA took us through his manifesto, he put up this slide where he tried to explain that growing your own is less efficient. This is true. You can attain a higher number of carrots, no doubt, but he has failed to point out that these carrots are not the same. Firstly, the usefulness of the supermarket carrot will no doubt be better. There will be larger carrots, more uniformity, less blemishes. However, the aesthetics will be inferior in many different ways. The tastes, the look, the ethical nature of the farms producing them, and the use of chemical enhancements to the product. Most fundamentally is the fact you can only get one type of carrot at the cheap end of the market. Now this is perfectly fine for the customer looking not to starve, but this ultimately restricts us from the complex array of colours and tastes that are available to the carrot grower. The grower can even cultivate his own original variations which are completely unique. The real test should have been between two like-for-like products. I've revised this calculation based on two things. Firstly, his growing calculations are off. On a standard 3 metre raised bed, you can yield between 3 and 4 kilograms of carrots. So in reality we have a ratio of 1 hour to 1.4 kilograms of homegrown carrot. Secondly, I've identified a more analogous product, this organic rainbow carrots, which are priced more realistically at £4.26 per kilogram. We can see the results here. While still yielding comparatively little to the cheap supermarket products, the homegrown carrots are much closer than you might think to aesthetically comparable products. If a larger space was used, 3 to 4 beds for example, it would probably be cheaper to grow your own. The point here is that we must look beyond pure volume and consider the consequences to every single purchase we make. One little known factor that is not catered for in AA's calculations is the fact that the farms producing these low-level, cheap carrots often use immigrant labour and actively lobby to import low-skilled workers from the continent. By buying your cheap carrots, you are actively increasing immigration. None of these factors would be considered as part of AA's initial calculation, where he is only looking at the number and not the consequences. This whole discussion has to be taken lightheartedly, but it highlights ideas that have worrying consequences. To a man of quantity, the material utility becomes paramount. He focuses on efficiency of production, on targets, on the number of carrots he can buy for an hour of labour, but he does not look behind the number at those ethereal aesthetics which are more important than we give credit for. The meme of live in the pod and eat the bugs is a rebellion against the man of quantity. Have you ever thought about the person who is trying to force the pods and bugs on you? Is he doing it out of mere sadism? Well, maybe, but a bigger part is that he's trying to get the most units possible out of his pound. Here's a quote from letstalkscience.ca on a page entitled, "Should We Eat Bugs?" Quote, "In general, insects are high in good quality protein. They are also loaded with many vitamins and minerals such as calcium, zinc and iron. Most insects are nutritionally similar to beef, pork or chicken. In fact, many insects pack a better protein punch and deliver more iron." How can we defend the eating of steak from a position of quantity? In every way the bug is better, higher in protein, vitamins. For the same amount of time it takes to earn one steak, we can have 4 times the amount of bugs. Let's use AA's similar calculations again. The Bugman. 1 hour of work equals 1.74 kilograms of Chubby's crickets and mealworm combo. The Steak Appreciator. 1 hour of work, 0.4 kilograms of M&S ribeye steak. It's clear to see we must reject this reasoning. For the steak tastes better, for the steak looks better, for the roast beef is the food of our forefathers. For God requested from Moses a burnt animal sacrifice as the highest form of offering and the highest form of food. For the steak is beautiful and good and true, not bugs. Bugs are the sweetmeats of Beelzebub. Let us leave this first part with a quote from the 3rd book of Plato's Republic. Here he is discussing the importance of surrounding ourselves with good things and understanding the importance of aesthetics. We would not have our guardians grow up amid images of moral deformity, as in some noxious pastor, and there browse and feed upon many a baneful herb and flower day by day, little by little, until they silently gathered a festering mass of corruption in their own soul. Let our workers rather be those who are gifted to discern the true nature of the beautiful and graceful. Then will our youth dwell in a land of health, amid fair sights and sounds, and receive the good in everything, and beauty, the effluence of fair works, shall flow into the eye and ear, like a health-giving breeze from a purer region, and insensibly draw the soul from earliest years into likeness and sympathy with the true beauty of reason. Let us, therefore, depart from the baneful herb of the supermarket carrot, and grow your own.